What does Timmies have in store for August? Well, it is time to find out. It is time for another round of my Timmies TBR game. If you are new here, this is my TBR game that I made based off my love of Tim Hortons coffee. We have to make it to the end of the board every month. However many rolls it takes is how many books are on my TBR. And once a book comes on the TBR, it can only come off if I read it or I DNF it. Those are the only ways that it can get off the TBR. So last month, Timmies was a little bit aggressive. There wasn't that many rolls, but I couldn't get most of my mandatory reads on the list, so I did end up with like 9 books on the TBR. As of filming this, I only have one left, so only one rollover from last month, and that is The Shadow in the Glass. Now, that being said, I have started this book. I have started it, but I do not really anticipate me finishing it before the end of the month. So I am going to roll this into August. So we are going to start the TBR off with one book, but I feel like considering how many books I had, that's not bad. I got all my mandatory reads read. I attempted to read most of the Timmies TBR books, which means I did read some. I DNF'd a couple. I'm not going to lie. There were a couple DNFs. But overall, I read most of them. So let's dive into our first roll of the new round of Timmies TBR, and let's see what August has in store. Roll number 1 is a 3, gets us a coffee space, and the prompt of French Vanilla, a book set in Europe. For our first roll, we got a French Vanilla space, which is my favorite drink at Tim Hortons, not gonna lie, and it is a book set in Europe. For this, I can actually use the B&K Book Club, which is perfect. For anyone who doesn't know, B&K Book Club is a book club that I run over on Discord with Kelsey, one of my best friends, and the link is always down below if you wanna join us. We will do launch sprints for this book. As of the moment of me filming, I don't know when those sprints will be, so if I know between when I film and when I edit, I will put it here on screen. But the book is My Friends by Fredrik Backman. I'm so excited to be reading a Fredrik Backman and this new release. Fredrik Backman is an auto-buy author for me. Kelsey and I both love Fredrik Backman, so when we found out this book was coming out, it was absolutely a no-brainer to be reading this with all of you this month. In this story, there is a pretty famous photo, and in the corner of this famous photo, there are 3 figures. I mean, it's easy to miss them. A lot of people do, but 18-year-old Louisa, who is interested in art, like studying to be an artist, does not miss and wants to know the story of the 3 people in the corner. And through that, we follow 2 separate timelines, one 20 years before with these 3 people, and Louisa in the current timeline as we discover their story. Fredrik Backman writes characters so well. The character work of Fredrik Backman is why I keep coming back, and I cannot wait to read this book. We are starting the TBR off perfectly this month with a mandatory read, but also 5-star prediction. Roll number 2 is an 8. Gets us a donut space. And the prompt of Canadian author. For our next prompt, we got Canadian author, and I will be reading The Forest King's Daughter by Ellie Blake. This is a book that I planned on reading this summer anyway for Booked for the summer, so this is another perfect read to be getting on my August TBR. Also, this is like a magical woods, and if you know me, you know I love the setting of a magical forest. It is one of my favorites. In this book, we follow 2 young children at the start of this book who are friends. They find a ring in the forest that they think is like just a trinket. He puts it on her finger, and immediately the forest king becomes in a war with the queen of the underground. We flash forward to now that they are adults and they are on separate sides of this war, and our main female character is using the ring to like fight in this war, like as a weapon. And the tagline of this, which I said in my book for the summer TBR, so if you've seen this, you've heard this, but it's childhood friends, mortal enemies turned into forbidden lovers. So that's what I'll be reading for this one. Roll number 3 is an 8. Gets us an iced coffee space. And the prompt of book not set on Earth. For a book not set on Earth, I am going to the planet Lumer, which I may be saying wrong, but I think if you know this series, or not series, if you know this world and this author, you probably know which book I'm talking about, and that is Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. I had to read this year. It's been waiting for me. I knew it was coming. It's on most of my year-long challenges. Basically anywhere that I needed to read a boat book, I slotted in Tress of the Emerald Sea because I don't like boat books. But I had to read this for my Cosmere read along with my patrons, and it is time. It is time to finally read Tress of the Emerald Sea. I know this is a Princess Bride retelling, and I know we follow Tress, who basically his father is forcing him to marry, taking him on a voyage to find a bride, and he somehow gets away, stows on a ship, and things happen. That's really all I know about this book, and I know it takes place on a boat. Will I like it? I don't know. I don't like boat books. Princess Bride retellings have been hit or miss for me. So you know what? We'll find out as we go through, but it's finally time. It's finally time to tackle Tress of the Emerald Sea. Roll number 4 is a 6. Gets us a donut space and the prompt of book over 500 pages. For book over 500 pages, I mean, that's a lot of pages, but I do read chunky books, so it's okay because actually a mandatory read I have is over 500 pages. For the month of August, Leandra and I are kicking off a Patreon-only joint book club. For the very first time, we're having our very first book. We're focusing on fantasy and mystery genre blends because that is what we are known for. We're really excited to start the book club of Murder Amongst the Fairies over in our Discord. And for that, we will be reading The Raven Scholar. This is definitely a really chunky book. It's over 600 pages, so it definitely fits the bill. And I'm really excited to start this book club over in the Land of Fairy Tales with the Manor. All the Patreon information is also always down below if you're interested. But yeah, we will be reading The Raven Scholar. It has been 24 years of peace in this world, but the reign of their ruler has now come to an end, and 7 warriors are competing to take the place of that ruler. One of them ends up murdered, and the High Scholar has to investigate this murder and find out what happened, what is going on, and kind of help bring in the new reign of the new kingdom. Roll number 5 is a 10 and gets us to the end of the board and a Patreon space. We have reached the end of the board in 5 rolls. And every single roll I've had, I've gotten on my mandatory reads, which means I have no other extra books to add to the end of this TBR, which is very, very, very exciting, honestly. That couldn't have worked out any better. But the final space on the board is a Patreon pick. Every single one of my top tier patrons is allowed to put books in this jar for me to read, and I will pull one out and I will read it. Last month I had to read Butcher and Blackbird, and honestly, I planned on vlogging that, but that vlog fell through because of all the DNFs for tackling Timmies, and also just because Butcher and Blackbird, I didn't really like it. I give it 3 stars. So hopefully I like this one a little bit better. I do think my patrons enjoyed seeing me read Butcher and Blackbird though. Like they had a good time with that, even though I didn't like the book. So let me pull out a book. Let's see what we get. Okay, I have one. I think it's only one at least. In the Dream House. Okay, Michael put this on the TBR, and honestly, I don't know who this author is. I'm going to have to look this up. I have it in a spreadsheet, so just give me a second. Let me look this up, and then we'll chat about it. Okay, I just looked this up, and it's by Carmen Maria Machado, and this is a nonfiction. I do not read a lot of nonfiction, not because I don't enjoy it and don't get something out of it every time. It's just not something that I gravitate towards a lot because I do read for escapism. But every time I pick up a nonfiction, I'm so glad I did. So thank you so much, Michael, for getting me to pick up this nonfiction. One that I actually have not heard of, but sounds very compelling and very interesting. This book follows, obviously, our author looking back over an abusive relationship. And I'm really interested to hear what the author has to say. It does say that it uses horror elements to tell the story, which should be interesting to see how that works for me because I'm not necessarily a horror reader. But I think within the bounds of nonfiction, that might work really, really well. The reviews for this book are amazing, so I'm actually really glad to get this on the TBR. But with that, we have 6 books on the TBR, which is not bad, very doable. Almost all of them are mandatory reads. So we have My Friends, which I need to read for B&K Book Club anyway. We have The Forest King's Daughter for a Canadian author that I'm going to be reading for book for the summer. Tress of the Emerald Sea for my Cosmere read-along, and A Book Not Set on Earth. A book over 500 pages, which is The Raven Scholar, which is my Patreon book club book for the month. We have In the Dream House, which is my Patreon pick. And then we have the rollover of The Shadow in the Glass. I think this is a very, very doable stack for August, especially since I was already going to read most of these books anyway. So thank you, Timmies. You did me a solid. With that, I'm going to head off because that's the end of my TBR. Let me know something that's on your August TBR down in the comments. I'd love to know what you plan to be reading for the month. But if you have nothing to say to me down in the comments, but want to let me know you were here, leave me a bird emoji for the Raven Scholar. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.